Hey, this is Jay.
And this is Cray.
Welcome back for another episode of the J&Cray Show, Real Talk.
Yes, let's go.
Hey, are you listening? Listen to me carefully. There's an app. It's awesome. It's called Anchor. It gives you absolutely everything and anything that you guys need, all right there in the app itself for free. So you can start your own podcast. You can use your phone or your computer, whatever. It gives you all the tools you guys need. You can make music in the background, in the intro, all kinds of cool sounds, closing sounds. And listen, this is the great part. Anchor is going to distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard like on Spotify, Apple, all your podcasts, Google Podcasts, anywhere else that you can imagine. They're going to help you get off the ground. You guys can make money from your podcast, and there's no minimum listenership. Anchor. It is the only app for podcasts.
Hey, how are you doing, Miss J?
Hey, Cray, how are you tonight?
I'm doing excellent.
So what do you want to get into tonight?
Tonight, let's talk about the Electoral College. With voting coming up again, it's time to go into, elect either another president or either see if our current president, President Trump, will continue on for another 4 years.
And be reelected.
Yeah, if he can be reelected. And let's try to break down how does things work. I mean, how it works, the Electoral College.
Yeah, I think that is really, really important, especially in this time right now in history, because I've noticed an influx of young 20-somethings coming into the forefront as far as voting goes and politics goes. And they are basically a little confused. A lot of them are either Democratic Socialists, number one, or Republicans. Now, let me just preface this by saying there is no such thing as a Democratic Socialist, okay? It's a virtual impossibility. You're either one or the other. Socialism has links to communism and Marxism, and I know that because I know about history. So a lot of these people that are calling themselves Democratic Socialists have no understanding of the actual founding and concept of socialism itself, or the fact that it's an impossibility to be a Democratic. The reason that we have a governing body called Electoral College to help us from being swayed by simply a popular vote, because that gets my goat every time. And when I say that, I want to preface this by everything that I say is based in cycles and the prevention of repeating a cycle, and based in historical fact and evidence. Let me start with Germany, and let me start with the year 1933. Let me start with a novel written in prison called Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. Let me go a little further down the road and tell you that a gathering of people who are interested in what we call here a popular vote, a new way of thinking in Germany, they gathered and they followed this young man who's freshly released from prison. And these crowds grew. It was based in the concept of popular vote, word of mouth. I want reform. I want this. I want that. And in the end, what happened is a dictatorship and a genocide. And in order to understand that, you have to really go back and understand why it happened. And if you don't understand these things, why they happen and that they did happen, you're bound to repeat. In other words, when you forget what happens is new to you, but it's old hat to people who've been around and been around a couple of times, if you get my drift. So I am in the crux of my life and I am looking at this, and I'm seeing the influence of millennials, and I'm seeing this shift with the 20 somethings coming in as powerhouses, following people in the calling themselves democratic socialists. And I have issue with it because I'm looking for repeat mistakes of the past, and I'm frightened by it. Thank God for the Electoral College. We had a 77 vote difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. That governing body decided to say, hey, for the betterment of our economy and our country's future, this is what's going to happen. We will sway this. And thank you, God above, that they did. We cannot function without the Electoral College as a governing body. The popular vote is never a good idea. I'm a human, I'm not a sheep. And if you understand what I'm saying, sheep follow a leader. I don't. Anybody that's a free thinker and still conservative has a place in this world. Those are the people that, for the most part, these young Democrats who are not really Democrats, they don't understand what democratic system is. They believe that you should have a free handout. You shouldn't have to pay back your student loans. You should have free meals. You should have this. You should have that.
So you're saying here, you're talking about the Democratic Socialists, you're talking about the Democratic Party, so for as long as with the Electoral College. But you're saying it kind of seems like you're trying to throw some shade on the Democratic Party and certain laws or certain things that they have passed through their party, as far as you're saying that people should have to pay back their college tuition and such and such. I mean, what really are you just kind
of that they took out college education? Yes. I'm a firm believer in paying back. Listen, it's not free to live in the United States. Obama phones didn't work out. It's not free to live here.
So basically, you're just saying like the Democratic Party is a handout party. They just love giving out handouts.
Well, let me backtrack. Let's go to 1964. The Democrats were real Democrats, okay, back in the day. Now, this is before we were even alive. But if you think back in history, what we know of the 1960s, especially the year 64, there was a transition that happened, okay? Traditionally, conservative Republicans are Black and extremely conservative, wealthy white people. Most people don't realize that. People who know their history, and most people who know Black history know that. Or I should say African-American history know that. Now, you have a shift that occurred in the 60s, okay? The late 50s and the 60s. 64 was the peak of it. You had people that became people that were freer, I should say, not free, but freer, had more freedom. They had the ability to think for themselves and be open and boisterous about it. They could orate about it freely without being shot or killed. Now, we had, skirmishes here and there, but my point is they were the leaders of the pack, okay, for minorities. Now, a lot of minorities believed in and subscribed to this ideology of equality. Equality was the basis for the democratic transition, because in the mind of an American back in the 60s, we were on edge. We had come out of the 1950s, a decade where Black people were free, quote unquote, to pay taxes and work, right? But they were still being lynched. They were still being damaged and hurt and persecuted, okay? Let's just talk about it because it's factual. Now, when you have a system that gathers minorities, primarily African Americans, Black people, together, and it says, we want equality, we want justice, and we want it now. And you have this group rising up, and they associate with one political venue called the Democrats, then there is a shift that takes place. And everything they did was the forming of equality, and it was for the foundation of a better future. Somewhere along the line, okay, in our capitalistic nation, we had a shift. Our Black leaders were killed. Our people who supported the black leaders were killed. We arrested all the Black Panthers. We deemed them as threats, terrorist group. None of that's true. We know that now. And we basically demolished them because we had a small grouping of people that had power. You have to keep that under control. So what happened, unfortunately, was an arrogant group of extreme conservatives decided that they were risky and they were liabilities. So you had to push back and you had to control it. So you act like a pack of wolves and you get them at 3 different points and you circle them around until they're cornered in a circle here and you control them. What you have at that point is a dying off of a true Democratic Party. The 1970s came along, Watergate, all that. And there's another shift. By the end of the 70s, the early 80s, we had capitalism rising. We are a capitalistic nation. People wanted to be strong Americans wearing eagles on their shoulders, walking around with money in their pockets. The economy was booming. We had a crash in 87. And then you have an uprising of sorts that started in different areas of the country. Politically speaking, you had branches shooting off, left, right, up, down, and in a circle. And everybody was going for what they wanted, what they believed in. You have a complete separation of the parties in a way it's monumental, actually, because they still could work together, the Dems and the Republicans. But today, they can no longer work together. It's about spiting one for the sake of the other.
Well,
and you cannot move forward.
What I think is that there is an actual game being played, and we're watching a game unfold. Like you said, it's like the Democrats, they throw out stuff to try to hate against the Republicans. The Republicans do vice versa. And even in the campaign strategy, it's like there's commercials made to point out this person did such and such, or this person did that during their time, or like say Herman Cain when he was running, or they said, oh, he was messing with women, so they wanted to get him out of the race. But what I think is that it's a game. And we're watching a game unfold when behind closed doors, they are working together. They are working together to pass certain laws in which both parties agree upon. So I think that as we move forward is that we don't get caught up in this Democratic Republican Party thing, is that we really take time to research the candidates and see really what we can get from them, because really we're not getting the complete truth when through these debates or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just to try to say the best thing to be that most appealing to the ear of the individuals that are tuning in. So I understand that the Electoral College, these individuals, these electors, these 538 electors throughout the states are those individuals who really take a closer look into, I guess they're able to see behind those closed doors that we are in, who's really going to help or who's really going to uphold the values are so much force that the United States wants to push going forward.
Okay, let me just say this. The Electoral College itself knows about the separation of the parties. However, they are a governing body that makes a decision that will have to bind the two parties together to come to a complete understanding of the betterment of the country and the government. And were it not for that governing body, we would have issues. They see things, as a template. You know what a template is. It's a basic outline. Or a gasket in an engine. It outlines the two pieces and components in an engine that come together. A template goes in between the two pieces that come together to form a seal. So that's basically what the Electoral College is. My explanation for it is this. Yes, politics is a game. Absolutely. It preys upon your deepest fears, your weakest moments, and your greatest hopes. Okay. Now, we understand this as humans because we are all in it. But the Electoral College sees things as a generalized outline. They have an end goal, and that is the betterment of this country. No matter what party thinks what this party thinks or that party thinks. They will find a common ground and a commonality for them to come together. Now,
Right.
the unusual thing that's going on now, let me take the wall and the border, for example, because I think most people are familiar with this. Listen, this situation with AOC, the Democratic Socialist Hispanic woman, is ridiculous. I just have to say this. Nobody's drinking toilet water, but I will damn sure drink a glass of water out of the sink that is, yes, connected to a toilet, but they're two separate pipes in there. Uh, that's the fact. Nobody's getting raped, and children are not isolated from their mothers and fathers, unlike she is perpetuating in the media. That is an example of a democratic socialist female who is perpetuating misinformation to grow the gap between a commonality with the Republicans and the Democrats. And it's more than a game to her. She literally believes the hype because she doesn't know the history. She does not know her history or our nation's history. And she's uneducated. And I'm sorry, she's ignorant. The definition of ignorance is lack of knowledge. And she has a lack of knowledge. That is an example right there of a democratic socialist that's convincing these young people in their 20s to vote in favor.
So you're saying that what she has stated so far as what's taking place is not true?
Correct.
And why would you say it's not true, or what proof?
Okay, let me share this with you. I take rape seriously. I'm a victim of rape. I don't even like to say victim. I'm a survivor of a rape. When you claim, okay, that you are in fear of a guard who is a federal employee of the United States of America, my country where I live, you're in fear of him touching your breasts or your buttocks or your vaginal area, and you're in fear of being raped by him, I take issue with you. You have nothing to base that on at all. You have a claim of two different women who claimed they were raped, but they didn't say they were raped by guards. They said they were raped on their way to the United States, to the border. Let's get the facts straight. At no point did a guard rape anyone. For her to perpetuate a falsehood about a sexual attack incites the mentality that we have to have change. They are against us. They are raping minorities. And that is not the case. It is another bit of misinformation that is leading to the popular vote being based on misconception and misinformation, just like what happened in Germany in the 1930s. I kid you not. We're going to repeat our mistakes if we have ignorant people running things. And that's an example of it.
Okay, so I get what you're saying, but it still goes back to this show that's being put on by individuals within each party.
Correct.
So with the show taking place, it sets it up for the voting, the popular voting, so in which those people are all into the show and follow the politics. Individuals like myself or whoever just that want to go down and vote for their respective candidate that they feel is best to represent or lead the state, lead our country.
Okay.
So that brings in the popular vote. Everybody goes out and vote. And in our last election or so, Hillary Clinton, she won the popular votes. Trump got 62 million some odd votes. She got 65 some odd million votes.
Can I stop you right there? Let me explain something. Listen to me. Correct. Okay. Correct. But listen to me. Just because it's a popular vote does not mean anything more than more people are middle to lower middle or middle and low class income brackets. And those are the people that succumb to the fake news, the misinformation, and the propaganda. So I want you to understand that, because it's not just a popular vote, it's a mentality that goes along with the popular vote. Okay?
But my thing with that is that this is supposed to be the we the people United States. That's like what our motto is. We the people. We're trying to do
Correct,
best,
correct.
what's best for the people. Okay. So
We
you
live under the guise of a democracy, correct?
right. We got a mass of people. We got millions of people that voted for Hillary Clinton. She got 3 million more votes than Trump. So
Okay.
that I,
Well.
that's why the Electoral College and the whole process of voting is it's kind of funny, because if you're saying that we want the people to choose who they are, this is what these clowns get up and do. The
Yes.
candidates get up and do. They get up and on the debates and say, we're going to do this for the people. We're going to do that for the people. They're examining each state by state, or each individual representing their state. They know what's going on in their state. They know what will be best to improve the state for the people to have a better life. So if you're saying you want these people to go out and vote for you, and the popular vote goes to Hillary Clinton in this situation, then you would think that with the popular votes, that the popular vote would help control the Electoral College, the electors that are in those states that she already won. But what I'm seeing and what I've read up here is that the electors in those states still can choose whatever side they want to go to. So it doesn't matter that
Well,
vote, this individual won the popular vote in the state. Say, for example, in the state of North Carolina, the popular vote went to Hillary, but the electors in that state can still say, well, we really don't want to go with Hillary. We're going to go
well,
Trump.
uh-huh.
So
Well, let me just
Yeah.
interrupt you for a moment. I want to clarify something with you. Okay. When I said earlier a governing body, I meant that. Okay. So listen to me. They're a governing body for a reason. Okay. Now, with the statistics and the number of votes, you have a grouping of people that are informed voters with a history of voting. Then you have some that they don't give a flying frogs behind, about politics. They're just voting because, well, so and so said to vote, and I'm gonna vote.
And
You know what I'm saying. You feel me, right?
stop you right there 1 second. And that's one thing too. Some people will just vote Democrat because they just feel like, oh, I need to vote Democrat. My family it was Democrats, and I don't know what's going on, but I'm definitely going to make sure that a Democrat gets in office. I'm gonna go down there and vote.
Okay. Yes.
Makes perfect sense to
You
why
made an excellent
there's
point.
electors
You made an excellent point.
that make that final.
That point that you made is excellent. Okay. And I was going to go there. This is my deal. As a person of color, it is inherent in me that I will not make a decision based on inherited democratic beliefs. Okay. It is a disservice to my heritage to do so. It is not what the 1960s were about. It is not what my people were about or are about. So it is disrespectful to do so. Black people and people of color need to understand this. The parties change and shift with their ideologies, okay? And people of color and Black people started out as conservative Republicans.
Right.
And they are the foundation of republicanism and conservatism. So when you know your history, you understand that, and you have a clarification, if you will. Now, my issue is, yes, people from the 60s, our parents were in the 60s and in the 70s, and they were in that way raised up in the air. Okay, I'm proud and I'm a Democrat. Now, they wanted equality. However, a secondary shift, like I spoke about earlier, has happened. Those Democrats are not around anymore. They're a dying breed. And most of them are now conservative Republicans once again, as their parents were. So the problem here is that they're assuming that they have to be Democrats because it's an inherited political stance and party system affiliation. But you cannot vote based on that. It has to be about the times you're in, the situation at hand with the country, the economy, and your relevance to how you feel about these things. It's not an inherited thing. So for people to say what you said, I'm gonna vote, Democrat because my people, no. If you really sit down with your people across the table, they're probably going to tell you the ones in the 60s that were Democrats are now conservative Republicans. And it's a situation where people, especially people of color, have to sit down at a table and talk about this, because I don't like when you use ethnicity against a group of people. And I have an issue with all these people and figureheads convincing people of color and black people that they have to vote a certain type of way, which is democratic socialist now, because that's not it. No, ma'am, that is not correct. And knowledge to me is the key to freedom. Benjamin Franklin said that, and it rings true today. Unless you educate yourself and have the knowledge about this, you really have no business saying, hey, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. You have to make a decision based on knowledge.
Right. And
And
that's key. You were saying earlier when you started speaking about the Democratic Party,
mm-hmm.
and you kind of made it seem as if the Democratic Party is a handout party that will allow people to not work and not pay their bills or not pay
Let me
back.
stop you there. Let me preface that and correct myself.
Finish the point though.
Okay.
Because I guess it's obvious that you are a Republican, and you were saying earlier that that's what pretty much goes on. The Republicans say that, oh, this party is that, or this party is that, to try to steer votes or swing votes to a different side. So I just think that the Democratic Party, I mean, could you give me your better explanation of what has made you a Republican believe that the Democratic Party is a handout party?
Well, let me correct that, okay? Let me correct my incorrect statement, because I did not clarify. There was no clarification. Let me clarify this. The Democratic Socialist Party, the new Democrats, okay? The new wave of Dems coming in, that's what I meant. I do not mean traditional Democrats at all. I mean the new wave of Democratic Socialists. Listen, let me explain something. I have a number of friends that are unbeknownst to themselves, appearing to me at least, to be elitist because they're from opulent wealth, old money, but they're Democrats. People that have the ability to have what they want when they want it and are secure can go out and feed the children in Africa. They can donate to this charity and that charity. But when you're sitting at home and you live in check to check, you're going to see things different. Okay, you feel me on that, right? So I really take issue with it. You got different types of Democrats, okay? But these elitist, wealthy, old money Democrats, they're leading the pack. And these young children are Democratic socialists, which doesn't exist, but they don't realize it because they're too naive and ignorant. And they're following their lead. But see, they're using them and manipulating them. And they want to give things out and hand things out. They can afford to live high off the hog and still give things out. But, the common everyday person cannot. They got to work to live and pay the rent and pay the mortgage and pay your car note. So my thing is, I don't appreciate the miseducation. That's what bothers me. And I find it insulting to people of color that, once again, slavery's dead, but the miseducation is another form of slavery, and the ignorance is another form of slavery. Everybody has a responsibility to get woke, if you feel me on that, because you have to control your ignorance and stop it at the door and educate and inundate yourself with facts. You must do this to be successful and to live and to be woke. And if you are not, you're just following, oh, I'm a Democrat socialist now, and I want to give out free Obama phones. This is ridiculous.
See, that's the thing there. Even with you saying the majority of African Americans, they vote Democratic. I think it's in a sense because they feel like this particular party is looking out for us. This particular
Yes.
party is trying to help us become better. But when we think about the last president that was in office, a Democratic president, Barack Obama,
Yes.
we you got to take a look at and see, did he create more jobs? Did the African American employment rate, did it go down? Did you got to look and see, were there more
Right.
African Americans in prison in the
Mm-hmm.
penal system during his tenure or whatever? I think those are the factors when we talk about. I would think about as an African American, if I'm going to vote you in, I'm not going. I don't care less if you're a Democrat. Is that what did the Democrats do the majority of the time in their office? And those are the major things, because people want to work, they don't want to be unemployed, and we don't want people to continue to go to jail. Because
Correct.
I think at some point in time there were more African American men in the prison system that were enrolled in college. So
Right.
those are the type of things that I I would say that African Americans, when people would need to take a look at when they're voting, and not just based on, because I was, like I said, I listened to the Warren Ballantyne show, and he was saying pretty much that African Americans shouldn't vote, because if they're not going to discuss any of our agendas or anything that we want changed, then if we don't, like reparations for a point, he said if they're not going to have a discussion, at least a discussion about reparations, then why are you voting for individuals that don't take your major care concerns at heart?
Okay. Okay.
So
Uh,
it's like for
well,
like in this last point, like Donald Trump, the President Trump, right now,
mhm.
there's an improvement in the economy. So there's more jobs, there's more opportunities.
Right.
I would say for all races, African Americans as well. That's got to be a positive, regardless if he's a Republican or whatever. That's
Uh-huh.
still a positive that he's doing.
Hmm.
Now I understand that he makes comments out of his mouth that could be racist, but at the end of the day, Trump is just the face of he's the face of the United States.
He's a
There,
figurehead. Right.
there's people that are working in the background that are making sure that the economy runs. Not saying he's a smart businessman. We all know him to be a great businessman,
Right.
and some of those expertise are being used. But at the end of the day, I don't think that we should get so caught up in what this man says.
Correct.
So what's happening. Are more jobs being created? Are less people being killed and going to
Hmm.
are put in the prison system?
Hmm. Okay. I mean, I agree with you. That's why you're informed. I'm informed. I love it. And I just want to say that that's an example of what everybody needs to do. They need to understand about unemployment rates among African Americans. It's the lowest it's been since Reagan was in office.
Right.
So, let's talk about it. Let's get real about it, because at the end of the day, you got a car note you got to pay, you got a mortgage, you got rent, you got a cell phone bill you got to pay, you got kids you got to pay for their football program. So that's what the everyday person thinks about, and that's what affects he and she. So to me, when you educate yourself and you say, well, let me see how this affects my day-to-day life with my family and my children, then it's a misnomer. It's like lights out. I got you. I know what party or what person I need to vote in favor of, because this is for the betterment of my family and myself. That's all it's about. It's about knowing that your opinion counts, and a bunch of our opinions really count. And if we vote educated and informed, as opposed to just listening to the fake news and media, whatever you want to call it, and the misinformation, you know, then we come out on top, because you're not going to lose if you vote in favor of what you need. And you don't
Right.
need a handout. You just need a hand up, a helping hand to grab you and help lift you while you work and pull your own weight. You
Right.
understand? Yeah. So to me, you know, it's insulting, okay, on so many levels, that they try to once again take people of color and just misinform. And I find issue and take issue with the fact that it seems to be okay with all of us. It's like, my brother, my sister, what are you doing? Like, no, 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 no. Let's look at these statistics and these facts and these figures, and let's sit down at a table and let's talk about this. Let's talk about how this affects, you know, your husband, your son, your daughter, and your life, and your home, and your income. Let's talk about the betterment of our people and in individual lives and families.
Exactly. So that's all everybody wants at the end of the day. It is not necessarily a handout, but an opportunity. Like if there are more jobs being created, then you got an opportunity to, be employed. And then if there are more, I'm trying to find, like if you want to have that opportunity to move from working for someone and be your own, become a business owner, then you want to have those loans available to start businesses up, those type of things. So that's what's going to make a better America: working people and people that become business owners. That's when
Exactly. Exactly.
the
And
time.
that feeds the economy as well.
So it's a win-win situation. I mean,
Right. One quick thing I wanted to say is that, you know, democratic socialism in itself, it's an ideology. I mean, in my opinion, okay, which, is not worth much because everyone has one, right? But I think that people are misinformed because they think that democracy can go hand in hand with like socially owned economy systems and economic ventures, and that the people themselves can like control and manage the democratic control of like banks and institutions, of economic growth and wealth. And it's just not possible to be democratic and socialist at the same time. We're a capitalistic nation. You cannot have socialism and capitalism at the same time. And if people just understood what the two are and the differences, they would stop floundering, like a fish out of water, and they would get real about what affiliation they want to be or not be. Sometimes you can be a Republican or a Democrat and vote completely the opposite of your party, you
right.
know?
So that's
So,
why you should just do away with saying, "Oh, I'm a Democrat" or "I'm a Republican." You should just, you
well,
know,
I think that statement will always ring true because people want you to know that they lean left or right, because people just identify, like skin color, you're dark or you're light. You know what I'm saying? So people just identify with what's easiest and most remedial because we're humans and that's what we do. But, you know, I really wish people knew history more than they do. And it scares me. It does. I'm going to be 80 years old someday sitting around trying to educate 50 and 60-year-olds about the history that I know that they never learned. That's
but yeah,
frightening.
that's what we're here for, though. We're here to gather the information for the future, for the next generation.
Right. Yeah, well, that's a good way to look at it because you don't want them repeating the past, the mistakes of the past.
And then it's very important, like, the Electoral College, just understanding how it works is very important. And just to kind of touch on it again, like every particular state is allocated a number of votes
Mm-hmm.
equal to the number of senators and representatives in that congressional delegation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the thing about that, the things that I question about the Electoral College is that, but I understand that if a state has more representatives, then they're going to receive more electoral votes. For example, like North Carolina, you got 15. New York has 29 because they have more delegates. They have more representatives. Texas has more than New York. They have 38. California has the most of all the states at 55. So it's like I was saying earlier, somebody can win the popular vote, but like these major states here that carry all these electoral votes, it comes down to be the most important part of it, to who's going to be the next president.
Right.
I don't understand why. And I could say, well, why doesn't everybody vote count the same in every state? Why is it, 29 here, 38 there? This is probably what people are wondering. Why has that system been set? Why was the system set up this particular way? Because it seems like it gives you an advantage in a particular state that you're in, versus with the popular vote. If you got more people in a particular state than the other, it's like that's an upside. So I guess the
But
electoral
that's not
college,
fair, though. On the flip side, that's not fair.
right? So that's why these are the things that are mind-boggling to me about it, and maybe there's more information that I need to gather on it to kind of fully understand it. But it's just interesting how these votes tally up, and you come forth with who the next president is.
Well, let me just say this. I believe that a part of it goes back to plotting and maps plotting. And what I mean by that is if you have Montana is sparse, it's spread out, and it's rural in many areas, most areas. And so you have a certain amount of delegates and representatives in a certain area. But then another area that's sparsely populated may have two. So it's based on a mathematical equation, and the dispersion of individuals is based on that system. That's all there is to it. Um, compare Rhode Island to California and the number of delegates. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's why I think people get confused. Large expanses of land in counties have a lot to do with it, where it derives. The derivation of the Electoral College was based basically on that and the dispersion of individuals and delegates. So it's a little confusing, but it can be taught to people. And maybe we should revisit this again. I think we should follow through up into the elections, occasionally talking about it, so we can like try to get people to better understand it and want to understand it, because it's really important. Every person in this country that is of age to vote is important, and their vote does count. Because when you have a governing body looking at it, if there's 50 over here and there's 14 over here, that governing body will be swayed to the 50. It will. Even though it's not basing it on a popular vote, they'll be swayed, and they'll investigate, and they'll say, now, why are there 50 here and 14 for this individual? Let's look at this. Economically, what's going to benefit? There's a system here. This is why it's done this way. And I think the more we talk about it, and we're open about it, and we break it down, I think the more people might even get interested in it. I mean, it's a situation where you can spark an interest in someone, and you don't know where that will lead. It might lead to people voting that wouldn't vote before, or never voted before a day in their life, and every person counts. We are America, all of us. It's not just, a group of people. We're individuals, and we all count for something, because we're all Americans, and every one of us matters. And I think at the basis of it, in the core of it, we need to remember that. When people say to me, and I talk to them, and they say, I don't vote, my vote doesn't count, it makes me sick, because you do count, your vote does count. It does.
Yeah, it counts, and it counts, but how much weight does it really add on to what's going on?
Well,
But
hey,
I understand.
we can cover that.
I
We can cover
understand
that.
with the hope, because if even in the popular vote, you win that popular vote in that particular state, you're hoping that they're taking a look at this and say, well, like you said, they won.
Right.
Popular votes won for this state, so let's it causes the electors in that state to be in full support of the candidate that won that particular state. For example, it's crazy to me that Hillary Clinton and President Trump are representatives of New York, state of New York. Hillary Clinton, she won the popular votes in New York. She won, but he won I think he won the electoral votes.
The college, yep. Yeah, he did.
So that's, it's like, okay, but it's just in hope that you would be able to make those electors go along with the popular vote, but
Right.
they may
It's in hope to sway.
see something
Right.
better. They saw something better. So
Yeah. Well, they saw the betterment of the country, and it's all about that. It's a governing body for the betterment of the country, the nation. It's not about individuals, it's about the nation, us as a whole, So, listen, we've been around for a couple hundred years, and I pray to God we continue in the fashion that we are because, you need rules, you need regulations, you need a governing body of some form to keep it controlled, because without it, you have chaos and anarchy, and to keep it progressing forward. You need a progressive movement. So, everything we have in place, it works. Yes, we're going to have, squabbles. We're going to gripe. That's part of being an American. And it's part of having freedom to say, hey, I don't like this. And the hell with this. I want to change it. And protest. It's part of being in this country. And our founding fathers were some of the most brilliant people, even in comparison to geniuses today, because they had the foresight to this year, 2019. It's crazy when you really think about it. From a series of letters called the Federalist Papers to the Constitution to the United States of America in 2019, I mean, we got something going on here that's special. We do. We're a special group of people in this country, and I love this country. And we may bicker and we may squabble, but look, in the end, our country works. It does work. I would not rather live anywhere else in this world than this country. I have freedoms here. I am protected here. I have rights here that I can express. I can voice my opinion without fear of being beheaded or stoned or killed. And I would choose no other nation to live in. I just really want people in this country to be informed, because it'll keep our country going and the momentum of the American way of life going. And then we can only improve.
yeah, we can only improve. Yeah, and it just takes each individual to do their homework, do the research, come up with your own. You're still going to form whatever your opinion is or your outlook. But like the facts are the facts. I mean, we're talking about 1787 is when they brought in the Electoral College, and it's 2019. So yeah, our founding forefathers did an awesome job of putting together building a foundation that continued to last up until even today.
Amazing.
Yeah, some people want to change things. Some things are working for the best. So
right.
We'll just see how things are going to turn out with this coming up election. We'll see who's going to be the president.
I'm excited. And
as always, we invite our listeners to feel free to leave a voice message. Feel free, as we post our podcast on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, feel free to leave a comment, your thoughts on the show.
And as always, until next time, I'll see you at the J&Cray Show.